Welcome to the Arctic, a place where daylight disappears for months, where the ocean freezes into a moving continent of ice, and where silence becomes absolute. No birds, no cities, no human sound, only wind and endless white. In 1845, two ships entered this world, the HMS Erebus and HMS Terror. On board, 129 men of the British Royal Navy. They were not inexperienced sailors. They were the best Britain had. And they were on a mission that could change the world. To find the final missing link in global navigation, the legendary Northwest Passage, a sea route connecting the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans. A shortcut that empires had dreamed of for centuries. And if successful, it would make Britain the most powerful trading empire on Earth. But what they were sailing into was not a sea route. It was a trap hidden in ice, and they had no idea. A perfect mission on paper. At first glance, nothing about this expedition seemed risky. In fact, it looked perfect. The ships were modern, reinforced with iron plating, equipped with steam engines, stocked with preserved food for up to 3 years. This was not exploration. It was confidence in industrial superiority. Captain Sir John Franklin led the mission, a respected naval officer, a man who had already survived previous Arctic expeditions. To the British Admiralty, he was the ideal leader. To Franklin himself, this was his final legacy, his greatest achievement. But history often begins with confidence and ends with miscalculation. Because no one at that time truly understood the Arctic. Not its currents, not its ice cycles, not its brutality. In July 1845, two whaling ships in Baffin Bay spotted something unusual. Two large vessels, frozen but moving carefully through the ice. The Erebus and Terror. The men on board waved, smiling, alive. This would be the last time anyone from the outside world saw them. After that, silence. Weeks passed, then months, then years. No return, no messages, no survivors. At first, Britain was not alarmed. Delays were expected in Arctic exploration. But as time stretched, concern began to spread. And then, fear. Deep inside the Arctic, the ships began to slow. then stop. Then freeze completely into the ice. The sea around them hardened into stone. Winter did not end. It only grew stronger. At first, with the crew adapted, they hunted. They waited. They burned coal to heat the ships. They believed spring would free them, but spring never came. Instead, another winter arrived, and another. The ships were no longer vessels. They were prisons. Floating tombs locked in white silence. And inside them, men began to realize something terrifying. They were not stranded temporarily. They were trapped permanently. As time passed, a new danger emerged. One they could not see, one they did not understand. The food supply began to fail. Canned provisions, sealed with early industrial methods, started to degrade. Unknown to them at the time, many containers were sealed with lead-based soldering. Slowly, silently. It may have been poisoning them. Men began to weaken. Forgetful. Confused. Some reported hallucinations. Behavior became erratic. And then, the first death began. Not in battle, not in storms, but in silence. Inside frozen steel. By 1847, the ships had been trapped for nearly 2 years. No rescue had arrived. No signs of life from the outside world. Captain Franklin himself had died. The command structure was collapsing. Morale was breaking.
We must strike south.
And then came the decision that would seal their fate.
If we push through, we might reach the outpost. May God have mercy on us all.
They would abandon the ships.
Put your shoulders into it!
A note was left behind. Dated April 25th, 1848. It revealed the unthinkable. Franklin was dead. "25 men had already died. and the remaining crew
Put your shoulders
would
into
attempt
it.
a desperate march
Do
south
not let it stop.
across hundreds of kilometers of frozen wasteland, dragging lifeboats over ice, hoping to reach the Great Fish River. They believed survival was still possible.
Keep moving. Do not stop.
But the Arctic had already decided otherwise. What followed is one of the most tragic journeys in exploration history. Men dragging heavy wooden boats across jagged ice. Weak, starving, freezing. Each step costing enormous energy. Progress measured in meters, not miles. There was no shelter, no firewood, no animals to hunt, only endless white. Modern Inuit oral histories later describe the scene. Men barely alive. Dragging sledges, some collapsing and never rising again. Others continuing forward until they simply disappeared into the snow. The Arctic was not chasing them, it was waiting. Patient, unforgiving, absolute. One by one, they disappeared. Not in explosions, not in storms, but in silence. Some likely died from starvation,
We cannot
others
stop
from
here.
hypothermia, others from a
you go, easy
combination
now.
of exhaustion and poisoning. The further they walked, the more the Arctic erased them. Eventually, there was nothing left to track, no organized retreat, no final camp. Only scattered remains found decades later, bones, clothing, abandoned equipment, and silence so deep, it felt intentional. When the expedition failed to return, Britain launched one of the largest search efforts in history. Dozens of missions, hundreds of men, searching across the Arctic for answers, not just for survival, but for national pride. Over time, fragments were found, a note here, a campsite there. Evidence of cannibalism was later suggested in forensic studies of remains. A last resort no one wanted to believe, but desperation leaves no rules intact. Yet the full story remained hidden. For over a century, the Arctic refused to give up its secret. Then came modern archaeology, satellite mapping, underwater exploration, and advanced sonar technology. In 2014, the HMS Erebus was finally discovered. Remarkably preserved, resting upright on the seabed, like time had simply stopped. 2 years later, the HMS Terror was also found. Almost intact, frozen in underwater silence. After 170 years, the Arctic finally revealed part of the truth, but not all of it. Because even now, key questions remain unanswered. What truly killed the expedition? Was it ice, disease, poison, or a combination of everything? The Franklin expedition was not just a failed journey. It was a confrontation between human ambition and natural reality. It showed something uncomfortable, that even the most advanced technology of its time was meaningless in the wrong environment. Steel ships, steam engines, naval discipline, none of it mattered. Because the Arctic does not negotiate, it does not adapt, it does not forgive, and once it decides, it remembers forever. Today, the wrecks rest beneath Arctic waters, silent, undisturbed. A frozen memorial to 129 men who believed the world was smaller than it truly is. Their story is not just about death, it is about belief, about confidence in progress, and the moment that belief met something older than civilization itself. The ice still holds their story, and perhaps it always will. Because some places on Earth do not give answers, only silence. For nearly 2 centuries, the Arctic has slowly revealed pieces of the Franklin expedition story. But many questions still remain buried beneath the ice. What truly happened during those final days? What thoughts filled the minds of those men as they took their last steps across the frozen wilderness? We may never know. But one thing is certain, their journey became one of history's greatest mysteries. Now we'd like to hear from you. What do you think was the single biggest mistake that doomed the Franklin expedition? Was it overconfidence, poor planning, the unforgiving Arctic, or something else entirely? Share your thoughts in the comments below. The greatest adventures in history are still waiting to be told. See you in the next documentary.